Hello, everyone. This is Jonathan Little. I'm here today with the 121st episode of Weekly Poker Hand, number 121. Here, we are playing 2,000, 4,000 with a 500 ante, so we're pretty deep in this tournament. And a tilty guy who has 250,000 raises to 9,500 from under the gun. Then it folds around to me in third position. I have 200,000, so that is about 50 big blinds. And I get pocket kings. It's a pretty good hand. You'll certainly sign for pocket kings. And in this spot, I'm definitely going to re-raise. Those of you who have been studying over at pokercoaching.com, if you're watching here, you can see pokercoaching.com right here in the middle of this table. If you've been studying with me over at pokercoaching.com, you'll know that I do not particularly like re-raising early position raisers. And that's because early position raisers should have strong ranges. And if they have strong ranges, well, I shouldn't be raising them very often at all because they should have me crushed just because their initial starting range is so strong. So, if this player was not tilty and playing fine, I would definitely just call. For those who do not know, pokercoaching.com has two main facets. One is interactive hand quizzes. So, it's almost like going through a bunch more episodes of Weekly Poker Hand, except for they're set up in a quiz format where you have to actually say what you want to do on each street, and then I will go through and explain why each of the options is either good or bad. And the second facet is I have a weekly or a monthly homework assignment. And I remember one of them recently was under the gun raises. We're in second position. What do we do with our whole range? So we're going through and we're trying to figure out what to do with all the hands in our range. And my answer to that one was effectively call with all of your playable range. Here, though, we're adjusting because our opponent's on tilt. So we are going to re-raise. We want to re-raise and let this guy blast his money in, or even just call from out of position with whatever garbage he has. Of course, he could have aces, but that's okay. If he has aces, we will lose. When you run kings and aces, it's okay. Don't think you were bad at poker or anything like that. That's just how it goes sometimes. So I make it 22,000 out of my 200,000 stack. And when it gets back to my opponent, he surprises me by shoving all in. All right, well, which hands do we think he should be shoving all in with? So remember, he's just making a 50 big blind all in over my 6 big blind 3-bet. It's pretty big. So if he's shoving in the spot, I imagine most people are doing this with hands like ace king, ace queen, and then stuff like queens, jacks, and tens. I think a lot of people with aces would probably re-raise small. I think a lot of people with bluffs would probably re-raise small, like ace five suited if he decided to do that. So it's kind of difficult to know what range my opponent's jamming with, but knowing that he is tilty, that makes me think that his range is obviously much wider than normal. I'm not just trying to decide if I should call off with kings here. I'm trying to decide if I should call off with ace king in this spot or with pocket jacks in this spot. And knowing this guy's on tilt, if I did elect to 3-bet ace king or pocket jacks in this spot, it's worth mentioning that you should be way more inclined to 3-bet aces and kings than jacks and ace king versus under the gun raiser, even if they are tilty, because you don't want this to happen. But if I did have ace king or jacks, I think I would call it off. Tens, I think, is probably close, and for that reason, I would not 3-bet tens. Ace queen is also probably close, and I would not want to 3-bet ace queen versus this type of player because you don't want to get jammed on. So all in all, I think I would be folding out ace queen and tens to the shove. But even then, I think it's close. Again, just because I have this guy tagged as very tilty. But with kings, we have a no-brainer call. We are very happy to get it all in for all of our money. Some people fold in this spot because they really don't want to get it all in for all their money in a tournament. And we are against ace 10 offsuit, so a very big spew. So what made my opponent spew in this spot? I don't necessarily know, but notice here, he had a reasonable stack. It's not like he's a short stack by any means. And that makes me think that this guy just does not know how to play poker very well. You cannot ever make this gigantic shove. This is just a huge blunder because when you win the pot, you win a very small pot. And when you get called, you are in horrible shape for a lot of chips. I mean, notice here, he is always very dominated whenever he does get called. And I think he's going to get called a pretty good amount whenever he raises under the gun and someone competent still 3-bets. So a very, very big mistake by my opponent and definitely not something you should do. If you find yourself in a tournament where you are reasonably deep stacked, I mean, here my opponent had, I think, 55 or 60 big blinds, something like that. If you have a 60 big blind stack and you're antsy or annoyed for any reason, do whatever you need to do to get off tilt. Do not sit there and just steam and be angry and decide that you're going to blast your stack in at the next opportunity. You want to make sure you're playing intelligently, not doing anything dumb, and playing well. Because quite often when you get this deep in a tournament, we probably started with 30,000 chips or something like that. If this was a $3,500 blind tournament, I mean, this guy just gave me, well, we'll call it $25,000 in equity just because he was annoyed, right? I've actually done a decent amount of webinars discussing mindset and how to not go on tilt. You can check those out at jonathanlittlepoker.com/training videos. But this is a problem that a lot of players have. And if you do have this problem, you're going to have a tough time making it in poker. So if you, I mean, you know, if you do this or not, right? If I'm talking to you now, I definitely suggest you work hard on this aspect of your game, because if you do this on a regular basis, you are just not going to be a winner in the long run. And if you're here listening to this podcast, I want to make you a winner in the long run. And the way you do that is by being disciplined and playing reasonable ranges. And shoving here with ace-10 offsuit is just incredibly far from reasonable. So that's going to be it for this episode of Weekly Poker Hand. I want to thank you for being here. Be sure to check back next time.